How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, lately I have been focusing also on retired Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, who lives up here in Southern California, and I appreciate that she has been keeping it very core with the royal family about the outright slaughtering of our royal son in Dallas. And she has a podcast that I've been listening to, and I'm going to play a podcast that she did 2 days ago that's going to give the royal family more insight on what's going down in Dallas with Chief Hall. Because Chief Hall told America that she wasn't able to fire this murderer, this murderous pig. You notice they got the towel around her neck trying to make her look some kind of way. So anyway, let's listen to what Dorsey has to say.
Dallas Police Department seems to dominate the news, or at the very least, it seems to dominate my podcast, right? Because I seem to spend an inordinate amount of time talking about it. But, you know, Chief Renee Hall has really inherited a mess. She's only been the police chief over there in Dallas for a little over a year, and there's all kind of shenanigans going on. It's reported recently in the news that there are 2 female black majors, and I don't know what their ranking system is. I'm not sure what a major equivalent rank would be here on the Los Angeles Police Department. But there are 2 female black majors by the name of Latoya Portia, I believe, is the name of one of the majors. And the other one is Paulette Richardson. And both of them have recently been under internal affairs investigation for cheating, bribery, and cover-ups. Seems that Major Latoya Portia created a sergeant's exam for police candidates. She created a sergeant exam, and then she also has a business wherein she was diverting traffic for officers who wanted to prep for this sergeant exam that she created and developed. She was charging officers money to learn how to overcome the exam, or to do well on the exam, I guess. And this Major Paulette Richardson is the one who sounds like she kind of told on her. Paulette got snared into this internal affairs investigation because she too was allegedly collecting money from police officers for information relative to this sergeant's exam prep that they had going on. And so they have sustained allegations of misconduct against both of these majors. They're both on administrative leave right now. Major Latoya Portia has 4 counts of misconduct sustained against her, and ultimately, I guess we'll have to wait and see whether or not these 2 ladies are going to keep their job. And then earlier in the month of September, there were 2 officers that Chief Hall had to fire because one of the officers had been involved in 3 off-duty arrests a year ago, and I'm not sure which one was ultimately the nail in his coffin, but he was accused of wearing a raid jacket off-duty, and he entered a Walmart and took about $830 worth of groceries and walked out without paying. And so I think that was the coup de grace for him. I think that's what cost him his job. And so Chief Renee Hall fired Officer Christopher Hankins for stealing $830 worth of groceries out of Walmart earlier in September. And then she also fired a police officer by the name of Elvia Mercado, who was arrested earlier this year in February on a DUI. So both of these officers were recently fired. And the reason that I mention that is because Chief Hall made a public statement very recently with regards to why she cannot fire Amber Geiger in the off-duty deadly shooting of Botham Jean in his apartment. Chief Hall, in her statement, said that she was prohibited from taking any action and that she didn't want to do anything that was going to interfere with the pending criminal process that is ongoing and connected to the off-duty shooting by Amber Geiger. Now, you have an officer who was involved in a DUI. You have an officer who was involved in a grand theft. $830 would make it a grand theft, a felony. Surely there's some kind of a criminal proceeding connected with both of those. Wouldn't that same rule apply, that Chief Hall would neglect to fire them or delay firing both of those officers because she didn't want to interfere or cause any kind of a problem with the pending criminal complaint that might be associated with the DUI arrest or with the arrest of $830 in groceries? So if Chief Hall can find a way, figure out a way to fire these two officers for, what could be considered a very minor offense when you compare it to the murder of a man who's sitting in his own apartment minding his own business, I don't understand then why Chief Hall says that she is prohibited from taking, and those are her words, in quotes, prohibited from taking action and firing Amber Geiger. I understand that part of the problem is that Chief Hall is an outsider, right? She came to Dallas from Detroit. And I'm assuming that in so doing, she did not bring a support staff with her. And there are probably very few people, particularly anybody that doesn't look like her, who is hoping for her success there. And so there's probably some nuances and some things that maybe people aren't sharing with her. There may even be some behind the scenes work going on to undermine her authority or to undermine her management of that department. Perhaps that's the reason that she succumbed to the pressure that is rumored to have existed from the city manager when she passed off jurisdiction and control over the investigation into that deadly shooting by Amber Geiger. The word is on the street that she was pressured by the city manager, and so she relinquished it over to the Texas State Rangers. And I would have to assume then that she doesn't have a friendly there, because somebody should have told her who the Texas State Rangers are and why it wasn't a good idea to give up control over that investigation to that entity. I've seen firsthand what can happen to an outside police chief when they don't grow up on the department, so to speak, when they don't come up through the ranks and they come from the outside. We had that happen here on the LAPD years ago when Willie Williams was hired as our first black police chief. And there was a really dividing, if you will. There were two camps that were established here on the LAPD. One camp for Bernard Parks, because he thought he was the heir apparent to the throne, and when he was overlooked and the job was given to Willie Williams, Bernard Parks was just fit to be tied. And Willie Williams, coming from the outside, didn't really know a lot about LAPD policy, procedure. He had to learn on the job. And there were just little simple, silly things that were nuanced that he was not familiar with. One of the things that he did when he came was he changed the dress for command staff officers, the official dress, if you will. LAPD, our version of, Class A uniform, our official dress has always just been our uniform with a long sleeve shirt and tie and a hat. That's been what we call Class A. When Willie Williams came, he decided that he wanted his command staff officers in Class A uniform, and that would then consist of a dinner jacket, like you see a captain wear on a cruise ship. And there was a lot of snickering and finger pointing when he made this uniform change, if you will, for command staff, because that's not the way that we were accustomed to dressing. And quite frankly, many of us in uniform thought that it looked ridiculous. But nonetheless, that was something that Willie Williams was not familiar with. And his very first police recruit academy graduation, which he presided over, they were saying that he had on the wrong kind of shoes. Being from the East Coast, I think that police chiefs and commissioners dressed very differently, and it was reported that he had on some wingtips or something. And of course, that's not what we wear. And so again, more pointing and snickering, and it's almost like a case of the emperor not having any clothes on and won't nobody tell him. So they just let him wear these wingtip shoes to the graduation, and everybody kind of made fun of him behind the scenes. But that's what happens when you don't grow up on an apartment. And when you come and you don't have a support staff, you don't have people that you can trust and believe are giving you good information, giving you appropriate information. And so I wonder if some of that is what is going on over there with Chief Renee Hall. If there isn't a group, if you will, secretly hoping for her demise, secretly hoping that she doesn't do well, giving her information that's contrary to what certainly people who look like she and I would expect that she would do with regards to a situation. And so that leads me back to Amber Geiger and that whole situation. So whether or not this thing is, she's indicted by a grand jury, she will definitely be tried in the court of public opinion. And so here's what I'm hearing now. I'm hearing things from people that are there on the ground, and I'm also reading things. I've made a big deal often with regards to this master key that Amber Geiger supposedly had that allowed her access to apartment units because she may have been acting in the capacity of on-site security, and that would then give her access. That's the reason for her having this master key, which would have allowed her to enter Botham Jean's apartment. So now it's reported that earlier the day of the shooting, some ladies from the leasing office had approached his apartment door because someone said that they smell marijuana coming from his apartment, and that the ladies in the leasing office had been up there and said something to Mr. Jean about that. And evidently, the way it was reported in the newspaper is that he had mentioned it to his girlfriend because he was a little upset that they had came to his apartment. For whatever reason, they came to his apartment door and had a conversation with him. And so fast forward to old girl, Amber, she gets off work, she's still in uniform, and she goes to his door. Now remember, there were some ladies who said they lived across the hall and heard knocking and someone saying, a female voice saying, "Open up, let me in." I'm wondering, is that Amber, because she's this on-site security and she's still in her uniform, is that Amber pretending to be on duty when she's really off duty, approaching Mr. Jean with regards to some kind of complaint that maybe the ladies in the front office had mentioned to her so that she would go and speak to him about? Is that what was going on, and it just went terribly wrong when she approached his door? Because again, there are reports and rumors that there had been some noise complaint, calls for service made to his unit, because he lived directly above Miss Amber, because he lived directly above Amber. One floor above, same apartment. He's in 1478. She was in 1378, one floor down. Is that the reason that she went to his door to have a word with him? Because she wanted to act on behalf of the leasing office as the on-site security and wanted to have a word with him about whatever was going on earlier in the day? Now listen, we know from Officer Christopher Hankins, who was fired, that, Dallas police officers will pretend to be the police when they're off duty, right? Christopher was wearing an off-duty raid vest, which means it would probably say police on it when he's not on duty. Is that what Amber Geiger was doing? Was she patrolling the halls of that apartment complex when she was off duty? Something went terribly wrong, and then she had to come up with a reason to justify this deadly force that should have never happened. Because remember, it's also reported, and we haven't heard the 911 call, but I'm curious to know now if they ever make it available. On the 911 call that she made from the apartment after she shot and killed Botham Jean, she told the 911 dispatcher that she had to step outside to get the unit number on the apartment. If she's at home, she thought she was mistakenly in her apartment, why then would she tell the 911 dispatcher to hold on while she stepped outside to take a look at the unit number on the apartment unit? That doesn't make any sense to me. It's also reported that in that 911 call, she identified herself as security. So that makes me go back to what I said originally is, was she there was she there off duty acting as on-site security for the management? We'll have to, these are all questions, good questions that, need to be answered. And I'm hoping, I say this out loud and I say it repeatedly because I'm hoping, I know that the family has an attorney that's representing them, and hopefully they're asking these kinds of questions as well. Or at the very least, they will ask these kinds of questions if this thing ever gets in front of a grand jury or a regular jury. And the reason that this is so important is because there's research that shows in 2017 there was a professor from the Bowling Green State University, a professor by the name of Philip Stinson, who did a research study. And this research showed that from 2005 until 2017, there were 80 police officers who were arrested and tried for either murder or manslaughter. And of those 80 officers, only 35% of them were ever convicted. We know that it's very rare for police officers to get convicted in these kinds of deadly force, on duty or off duty incidents. And we also have evidence of, in those rare occasions when an officer is convicted, sometimes the penalty is not commensurate with the action that the officer took. As in the case of Officer Lee, former NYPD officer who shot and killed Akai Gurley in an apartment complex stairwell. He was tried and convicted, but he was given probation. So we know that convictions are rare and they don't happen very often, and that is why I say let your vote be your protest. Because in the state of Texas right now, there is a very close Senate race going on between the incumbent Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke, who is also running for that Senate seat. It's a very close race. Depending on the poll that you see and on the day you see it, they're either even or just a few points different between the two of them. And Beto O'Rourke gets it. He said that in the case of the shooting death of Botham Jean, this cannot continue, as opposed to Ted Cruz, who says that, Democrats are quick to want to blame the police whenever there's a deadly police shooting. Well, I would say then that people like Ted Cruz, Republicans and others, are quick to blame the victim. We know that they blame the victim, and we know that they try to dirty up the victim, Botham Jean, by saying that they found 10.4 grams of marijuana in his apartment. They didn't attribute it to Mr. Jean, but the mere mention of it infers that somehow he was involved in some kind of illegal activity. And so, again, let your vote be your protest, and pay attention to the Senate race between Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke in the state of Texas. I want to thank my subscribers and listeners, and understand that as I report on things that I hear, I just tell you what I heard, and then I tell you what I think about it and what it means to me based on my years of training and experience as a police officer. And so I appreciate the feedback. I try to get it right most of the times, but if I misspeak or report on something that isn't factually true, I appreciate the feedback and you pointing that out to me.
All right. I appreciate retired Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. I'm going to make sure that I put the link there because she does have a weekly podcast. And I was kind of late in bringing up the pictures, but these are the corrupt, unquote, majors. It was doing they thug thizzle down there in Texas. And then here is the other, unquote, police officer that lost his job that just took some groceries up out of Walmart. So, let's see. Chief Renee Hall has inherited a crop of shit. And I can see why they brought her in, because she comes from Detroit. She don't know what's going on down there, And I do agree with Dorsey that you know, she doesn't have a supporting cast down there. She has to figure it out as she go. And she has to tread lightly because she's trying to maintain her immediate situation too. And Dorsey has really enlightened the royal family about this bitch murdering our royal son. So we will see how this all pan out. But I thought it was necessary that I would play this video so the royal family could get more of a feel of the fuckery that's going on in Dallas. But this is what's going on in America, because America is nothing more than an unquote shithole. Trump should have never said that. I'm gonna wear that one out. So anyway, my royal family, I know lately I've been showing quite a few videos about corrupt police, but that's all we are dealing with. I mean, there are other things going on, but maybe that's just where my energy is right now. So anyway, my royal family, I'm gonna keep bringing it, and if I can remember, I will also put the link to Dorsey's YouTube channel. She's just starting out, and I'm surprised somebody is bringing some kind of truth, because she has had a insight. It's not to say that I trust police. Sometimes I had to put that out there, that you know, I'm just bringing what I can bring, and then I bring my opinion, and your opinion means well too. On a side note, my royal family, I got and this is not the first time I've gotten this. One of my subscribers said that I had blocked them. I do heavily monitor my channel because of some stuff that I've had to deal with in the past. And if I block you and you ask me directly, I will tell you. I do block a lot of the enemy, and I do block coons. But if you disagree with me, or if y'all mingling it up with other people, I stay out of it. I might say what I got to say to you, but you know what I'm saying. I'll stay out of it. Now, I do have moderators that have the ability to remove your comments, and then I have to approve them. And that don't always work right. You know, ever since I've been on YouTube, I've only been able to, on 3 occasions where it popped up one day, I seen where all these comments were deleted. But I want my subscribers to understand that they mess with our channels. I've been saying this repeatedly, and I wasn't believed at first, and the people who literally crucified me, they won't come before the people, but they'll go behind the scenes and email me and say, you know what, Churia, I apologize, blah 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 didn't happen on my channel. I blocked those people on my email. I don't want to have nothing to do with you because you did crucify me. And I was trying to tell you, a couple of weeks ago we were on Lisa Cabrera's channel on a live stream, and I made a comment right before our eyes. They took my comment down. That was the first time I ever seen that. People don't get their notifications. A lot of things happen on YouTube, especially when it comes to the royal family. But yeah, ask me directly and I'll tell you straight up, yeah, hell yeah, I blocked you because I feel some kind of way. But the person, and I'm not going to mention your name, I did not block you. It did not take your comments down. And right now at this point, when I looked in my unquote area where they put the comments held for us to make the final approval, that hasn't even popped up. So I just wanted to put that as a side note. But anyway, my royal family, enough of that. I want the royal family to render their voice with their beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.